Embrace.
These are the tools you will need. 2 ratchets, sockets you'll need 19mm, 14mm, 13mm, 12mm, 1 or 2 extensions, you'll need a mallet or a hammer, a 5mm standard Allen wrench, flathead screwdriver, grease, and blue Loctite. The reason why we use a standard Allen wrench is so you don't over tighten. You can use other Allen wrenches, obviously. Next up, you'll need to loosen and remove the axle. You don't need to pull it out all the way, you just pull it out a slight bit. Then tilt the tire to the left and pull the bracket out. Next, remove the nut and the caliper along with the hardware from the bracket. Take note of where the clips are in the caliper before you take them off. Maybe take a few pictures. The tab points up, so just take note of that, or like I said, take pictures. And the other clip goes on the other side. That helps the caliper slide. Go ahead and push the pads towards you and slide them out the back. They'll pivot out. The clip will fall out, don't lose it. The caliper slides right off. Go ahead and remove both of these. This is a 12, this is a 13. You can hold the front side with an Allen and then break it free with the ratchet on the back, but you will have to press this out. This is your factory bracket. There's a pin here and there's a pin here. They both need to come out and go on the PSD bracket. On the back side here there's a nut. I went ahead and put it on something solid and pressed it out. You can use a punch and put it on something solid and hammer it out. Be careful not to damage this bracket. The pin is pretty much glued in there, so it's going to take a bit of force. Try not to break the bracket. Try and clean off the adhesive Loctite from the bolt. You'll need to put some more on when you install it. Be careful not to damage this portion of it. That's where the caliper slides. If you damage this, the caliper will not slide properly and you will end up with a sticky caliper. This is the 12mm. Go ahead and just use a ratchet to take it out. If you notice here on the bracket, the stock bracket uses adhesive to hold this clip on. I would probably advise doing the same. You don't need anything super intense, just something that's slightly sticky that will keep it from moving. They are a pain and they pop off when you're trying to install them. So I highly recommend bending the tabs in just a very slightly so it grabs the bracket a little bit better. These are the 2 pieces you will need off of the stock bracket. So stock bracket, this is the PSD bracket. The silver slide goes here. The black slides right in here. Remember, Loctite, people. As you can tell, the black one slides right in, no problems, no issues. I would use Loctite on the back. You can put Loctite in that hole. It's not going to really make a difference either way. Just going to put a dab on the threads here. You can also put it on the bolt. Start it by hand and then tighten it with a ratchet. You want that to be completely flush, just like this. No gaps. Next are the clips. You'll notice that I didn't use adhesive. But on this one, I bent these little clips. You only need to bend them a very slight bit, just so it grabs the aluminum a little bit better. Or, like I said, use adhesive. So pop that on there. Now it doesn't fall off. Remember, this little tab points up and goes into the caliper. This is the difficult part. People have a hard time getting the caliper on the bracket, even the factory bracket, because how Honda designed the actual bracket and how the caliper is. I leave the brake pads out and slide the caliper on just a little bit. And then you flip the pads around one at a time and pop them into place very carefully. Make sure you get the clip in there properly with the tab facing up. Notice there's a little gap and area in here. That's where you swing the caliper pads through and you slide them over. And the first one into place, it sometimes will click. And the second one slides up and then towards you. It is a little bit harder than the first one, but once you do it a few times, it gets pretty easy. As you can see, the brake pads are now clipped into the right area. Use a screwdriver to spread them apart and pop them in the right place. And give it a little space so you can put it over the rotor. Then you just put it on the reverse way that the stock one came off. Make sure the tab on the bracket goes into the notch for the swing arm. Some people do this wrong. Just make sure that it goes in there properly. You just slide it down and over and into place. Make sure your wheel spacers are in there before you attempt at putting the caliper bracket on. Then put the horrible Honda adjusters in place and slide your axle all the way back through. And it's in place, just like that. Then pull the Allen bolts out for the brembo caliper. Once you have the pads separated, go ahead and install it. And hand tighten them in. Once the caliper's all bled out and everything, make sure to use blue Loctite on everything. Not red, blue. Can't say it enough. Use blue Loctite on all the bolts, on all the factory bolts, on everything on your bike. Advice for bleeding it: I would bleed the caliper, especially the P32, off the bike. Makes it easier. Grab a screwdriver or a rotor and put it in between the pads and bleed it out off the bike. As you can see, the brake line goes through where the headlight is, under the triple, through the clips next to the throttle cables, then back behind all of the excess wiring, just out of the way of any moving objects, then through next to the swing arm and all the way down the swing arm to the caliper. And that is how you install the PSD single brembo OEM caliper bracket.
Get to the chopper now. Get to the chopper now. Get to the chopper.
Embrace.